Welcome to Courageous Conviction. Remember that Jeff and I record each Saturday 5 episodes. So please hit the like button, subscribe so you catch all 5 episodes. We usually start out with one theme or topic. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes to really understand it. Some things are more sensitive than others right now, what's going on in the world. So hit the like button, subscribe, and let's jump into this video. Welcome to Courageous Conviction. Remember that Jeff and I record each Saturday 5 episodes. So please hit the like button, subscribe so you catch all 5 episodes. We usually start out with one theme or topic. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes to really understand it. Some things are more sensitive than others right now, what's going on in the world. So hit the like button, subscribe, and let's jump into this video.
Well, we'll have to go back and look at the talk, right? And we'll have to kind of unpack what it means to be
unpack that one.
Nationalist, so because that to me, it sounds like nationalist talk. I just kind of feel like we right now, as members of the church, we have a direction that we need to go to. And one of them is teaching the gospel. Now, if it means that, hey, we got to start buying planes and buses and shipping people out of the country that got here illegally. Hey, I'm all for that if they're criminals. Send them back out of the country. But what if they're not? What if they just happen to be, Sandinistas? Sandinistas is not. They're not. They're not typically conservative. They were born into socialism. Right. So, or any other ideology. So we don't want to, and Sandinistas are bad because they were, nationalist as well. Somoza was a bad guy. I remember driving down to Costa Rica when I was a teenager and going through Nicaragua and seeing all the Mercedes-Benz leaving the country, and they were in a convoy almost with us on our way to Costa Rica. They were fleeing the country because, the Sandinistas were winning at that point in 1979.
And if we let all those Sandinistas into America, what happens to America?
So what we want to have, why I was talking about my Mexican buddies that were running restaurants and that have become conservatives, and there's a big group of Mexicans right now and other Latins from places like Venezuela who didn't like Chavez. I'm sure there's a bunch of them that do. But the point is, people can be converted to a better way of thinking, and realizing that socialism is not, it's not sustainable, so, and that's wrong, right? It's a wrong kind of political kind of system that destroys religion and destroys our ability to think freely or to be able to converse freely, like we're talking about now, or having differences of opinion. But, we can do that on the right as well when you become nationalist, because we become accusational, turn into people like Franco, who was a Hitler supporter, who went around and killed tons of people who disagreed with him, shot them in the street. And while he was doing that, he said, hey, everybody's going to speak the same language and carry the same flag. And so people had to hide their true, cultural identity. The Iberian Peninsula at this point all of them had different flags and different languages.
But you're talking about a dictator that took over a country and obligated. We're talking about two different things, though, bud. Because I'm talking about people who want to immigrate into this country where a culture is already established, and they want to come to that culture because they think it's better, and then they want to come and change it and lower it down to the culture they're leaving.
I hear what you're saying. If that was really the case, if that's the case, And maybe it is because we got the narco traficantes that are the ones that are bringing people over the border because they're the ones that control the border, and nobody gets over the border without going through the narcos, right? That's a big business. They don't just import drugs now. They're bringing in people. That's a bigger business than cocaine.
What's bigger yet is child trafficking. How many times you sell drugs one time? You can sell a child for 12 years.
A bunch of times.
Yeah. Right. And that you have a lot of that right now. And you have this administration facilitating that. So, I want to get back to though, my point of, when you ask me the question, what do you do with them? And I say, well, they don't like it, they can go home, right? And my point being, not to be so black and white, because I know you weren't expecting me to say that, but my point is,
it's just wrong. It's immoral to think that we could.
I don't think it
home.
is. See, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. If you're going to come here illegally, you're breaking the law. For one, right?
Okay, but what about everybody that wanted to come here that couldn't come here legally?
But there's a reason, because there has to be. Okay, I think that the United States makes a lot of money off this, but you have to let immigration come slow, trickle, so it assimilates and it doesn't destroy the culture. Right now, what we're having is that same effect of culture being destroyed. Now we're completely divided. We have we don't even have a culture
because they're coming over illegal. I mean, 6 million people. I don't even know what that's never happened before.
No, it's never happened before. No,
but everybody's talked about the issue that we've had with labor. Now I walk into kitchens, and there is not an English word spoken. I enjoy it because I talk to everybody in Spanish.
I enjoy it when I'm in their country. But when I come to my country, I want to get away from it too.
But these guys are still there, but they're very much American. These guys come here and they assimilate very fast. They want to buy American cars. They want to. Yeah, well, that's where we're going to disagree, because I think that all these people that you're talking about, a lot of them have been here for decades. They still speak Spanish. They've lived here for 30 years. They came over the border 30 years ago. Or maybe they came over when they were kids, with their parents who came over the border and were working the fields. I got great compassion for those people, always will, and I'll always be speaking Spanish to them because that's the language that they understand better. It's like you and I. I mean, I can listen to conference in English or Spanish. I prefer to listen to it in English. Because it's my language.
Because when it gets translated into Spanish, they lose a lot in translation. I say all the time, we had general authorities come down. Down there, you get general authorities a lot because there's a lot more supervision. And they would translate Elder Hauling. Elder Hauling came a lot in our area. Mm-hmm. And they would translate, and the translator was not translating what he was saying in English. Right. So I prefer listening to English because I'm going to get it direct translation.
Because they're not really translating, they're interpreting.
Interpreting, yeah.
So but see, the same thing happened with the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon was interpreted. I mean, we use the word translation for the Book of Mormon, but when you really think about it, the language that was spoken, Hebrew, years and years and years and years ago when the Book of Mormon started, and whatever that language
is in there. The Book of Mormon has its own language, right? They kind of created their own language, the Book of Mormon.
They did eventually, but at first, at the very beginning, 600 years before, they started out with Hebrew, right, and wrote with Egyptian hieroglyphs. Yeah. Because it was just easier.
Form of Egyptian, yeah, it was a type of form of Egyptian,
right? So. And that I'm sure that language just morphed and morphed and morphed, but to some extent.
But now we're talking about the difference now between somebody standing in general conference and translating or interpreting, and Joseph Smith being guided by
the Holy Ghost,
in a much more direct situation than, let's say, the Holy Ghost is guiding an interpreter, right, in conference. It's not the same situation with the Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith his mind was opened up to it. He went back. He could see the vision. He could visualize and see it. What was being read. Well, I don't know if it's word for word, but he got the full interpretation of it, right? He got to understand everything as he was being able to write that. So therefore, it's going to be more correct the first interpretation or the first translation, whatever you want to say, right? That's going to be the most correct because that was what Father wanted him to write. So the same thing with Mormon. Mormon had archives he could have chose from, but the Spirit guided him on what to write in the Book of Mormon that would be needed for our day, right? And we know there's another book, a second book that was written as a backup, and we don't know why that backup came in handy for the manuscripts being lost and so forth. But it was all there, but it was all being told to Mormon what needed to be given. So it's different than somebody standing at a pulpit interpreting. Right. So I agree with you. I would rather listen to an English conference because they misinterpret a lot of times, where Joseph didn't, right? Where Mormon didn't.
Right.
Because it was
They're
different
still led by
situations.
the Holy Ghost. I think there's, and I've read certain instances where people that were interpreting were overcome by the Holy Ghost and interpreted certain ways that they felt was correct because they were inspired. But I know it's not the same. I'm not comparing that to Joseph Smith's translation of the Book of Mormon. I guess getting back to the whole thing is we're in a situation, we're in a crisis with people that have come over the border. And the
How do we
illegal
deal with
people,
it? Yeah, I get what you're saying. How we deal with it?
the criminal people, the criminal element is a big issue. And the element that involves narco traficantes, how do you say that in English?
I don't know.
The narco
Drug cartel.
traficantes,
Drug
the
cartel.
drug cartels.
Yeah.
So them being involved
Here we go.
with
Speak
with
English,
our-
Jeff, please.
Sorry, I'm living
You're in America, dude.
So the thing is that it's wrong for us to allow the drug cartel to be so involved with this. It's immoral. It's just wrong. And having that many people come over is wrong. Now, whether or not they're all coming over here to dilute, skin color and dilute language and dilute all this stuff, I think that's just not something I'm interested in going down, because I think that it doesn't really.
I'm not saying they know
correspond.
that. They don't know that why they're being allowed in here. They don't know that. I'm talking about those pulling the strings to keep that border open are doing that. The people that are coming here, they're just coming, right? They're coming. A lot of them have been dumped off their prisons, like they emptied their prisons. They're coming here. Not all of them. There's some good people in it too. I know that. However, there's some things that people need to be aware of actually what's coming across the border. They have a lot of
I'm not
criminality.
saying, there's a ton of them, and there's a lot of people that come over the border that really do have issues. We don't know who they're not being vetted. They're coming over the border, and they shouldn't come over that way. They should be able to come over the border. If we want to bring over 1 million people, and not do the trickle thing, I think that would be better than than doing it the way they're coming over the border now, because now we just don't know who's coming in. But we do know that there's a criminal element, that there's going to be a ton of them that are going to come over the border that have been apprehended, that have gone to prison, in their own countries. They've gone to prison here multiple times, and they're not here for good reasons. And when we have a border that stops that from happening, I think then we can live a little more comfortably. That needs to be stopped, I think, at all costs. But what are we going to do with
a nation that has no borders has no sovereignty.
right? So we agree on that. Whether or not those people should come here and learn English or not, well, yeah, I think they should. I think they should make their best effort. I think we should have programs for people to learn English. I don't think that we should give people automatic free tickets to go vote or to get driver's licenses if they come here illegally. Absolutely not. We shouldn't encourage people coming over the border that way. I think we do have a problem with how people are treated in trying to get here. It's easy for us to go down south. I went down to Costa Rica. I worked illegally for several months, before almost a year. I remember when the immigration showed up and everybody went out the back door, and I was one of those going out the back door. I know what that feels like. It kind of sucks. So,
Why'd you do that?
Because I would have got rounded up by the immigration and
No. Why'd you work illegally for the first year? Were you in process?
Yeah. I thought I was in process. I paid off some guy. This was back then, that, to help me get the residency because it was going to be difficult. But, and by that time I had gotten married, with, to Jill. Yeah, I think I was in the process with the immigration then. But
Once you were married to Jill, weren't you legal status, even though you're in
not
process?
right away. No.
I
that
know.
took a
I know.
while.
Once I applied for my residency, I was legal standing. Same with Dee here. Dee has been over a year. My wife has been over a year since she applied,
Mhm.
and she has nothing. She has no green card yet, but she's legal here still, right?
Yeah, I hadn't been in the country for a year.
Now she
in
can't
Costa Rica.
work, but she can own her own business.
Yeah,
Right. So I guess that's what you were doing. It's kind of same idea. You were working. Same thing. in Costa
I was
Rica.
working.
You couldn't work, but you could own a business.
Right.
Right. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I think the point is that people make decisions. Not bad people. I wasn't a bad person going to Costa Rica trying to steal Costa Rican jobs.
Shame on you.
Yeah. So I just did things better. Than my Costa Rican counterparts that worked back in the kitchen, and that's why it was easy.
You
for
are a
me
good chef, though, Jeff. So it's hard to beat your cooking.
maybe back then. Thanks.
Dee and I
But
talked about
I think the point is that I did that. I remember running out the back door, getting the phone call. The owner got the phone call, said, "Hey, immigration's on their way," out the back, And I think the other two guys that were with me were Nicaraguan.
Yeah, most likely there. Yeah, probably. You're probably right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we should probably start wrapping this up.
Yeah.
It's going long.
Well, what,
I
I
just
mean,
wanna
what can we do to get to make this into a positive thing? We have
I think
6 million people here. We're not going to send them all back. They're here now.
Well, no, that's not what I'm hearing, though. No, that's not what I'm hearing. No, I'm hearing that they want to round them all up and send them all back.
Who does?
Huh?
Who wants to round them all up?
Oh, this is what Trump is on his campaign trail saying. He's going to round them all up and then send them all back. That's what he's saying. They came illegally. They're criminals. I'm going to round them all up and send them all back. So, then you're going to have this whole issue of that's cruel because now they've been here. If Biden really wants to throw a wrench in there, he'll just do an executive order right before he leaves office and legalize them all. Right. So now they're all citizens Trump is rounding up. Trump has been saying that his last 2 wins. He has said, well, one of those, he said that he was going to round up all the illegals and send them all home.
I thank you for being with us on Courageous Conviction. Remember, there's 5 episodes each week that we put out. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes, so stay with us. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and don't miss tomorrow's episode on Courageous Conviction.